All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our first full week of distance learning. We have what we have sent home to you is about 3 weeks worth of work. What I personally have sent home to you is about a week's worth of writing prompts, about a week's worth of reading, and then an extended assignment that, given all of the craziness going on, I think will take you about a week. It is that writing assignment that I want to talk about today. You had two choices for that assignment. You only needed to do one of them. If you would like to reach, go ahead and tackle the other one. But remember, the first option, which is the research option, does require internet. That's going to be the one that we're going to talk about right now. So when you're setting this up, you have no fewer than 5 paragraphs. Okay, so starting with that, obviously you're going to have an introduction and a conclusion. Realistically, you should have about 3 body paragraphs. If you are laying out your essay and you're only going to have, let's say, about 5 paragraphs, right? So if you have 5 paragraphs, you're going to have 1 intro, 3 body, and naturally, your conclusion. You don't have to be a math teacher to know that 1 and 3 and 1 is 5. So, with that, you probably want to be careful with how many sources you use. And by probably, I mean you should be. Because if this is what we've got 3 paragraphs, and typically in our classroom we define a paragraph as about 7 sentences, give or take. With this being a research assignment, you're probably going to be more in the 7 to 10 range. Because remember that for every 1 line of somebody else's work, you should have 4 of your own. So you should always be in a 4 original to 1, we'll just say quoted ratio. You should always be in a 4-to-1 ratio. And that is so that way we know as readers, and specifically I know as a reader, who's actually writing the paper. So if this is the other way around, you're not really writing the paper, are you? Basically, somebody else is writing the paper and you're just like, that's cool. So try to make sure that you're hitting this ratio. Are you going to be able to perfectly hit it every time? You should. If you are struggling at any point, what I would do is if there really isn't that much to say, it's probably not worth having in your paper. So think about it this way. If one of the things is that the sky is blue or the grass is green, there isn't much to say about the sky or the grass. Now, if we were talking about, say, I don't know, the mass transit downtown, there's a lot to say about a bus system, at least compared to, grass or the sky. So try to make sure that you are picking quotes that you can talk about. And you always want to, especially in an MLA, you want to introduce your quote. And I am not an artist, so forgive me for my dodgy drawing. This is your intro. You introduce the quote. You say who said it, all of that, and then you have you have the actual meat. That's a patty. This is your actual quote. Now, I'm the kind of guy who likes to put my burger on a bed of lettuce. So, I don't even know how to draw lettuce. We'll call that lettuce. This is our leafy greens, maybe arugula if you're feeling a little spicy. And so this is another, so this is you. So the introduction should definitely be you. So right there, say something about the quote. So you are saying something, and at that point, you've got one line. Now, let's be real, a good cheeseburger is not just top bun, meat, and lettuce. Nobody eats a burger like that. So you probably got some tomatoes, call that a tomato. Probably got a few tomatoes in here. They look like pepperoni, whatever. This is another line of you. So talk about the quote. And I would say things like the significance or of said quote or of the event that the quote is representing. So if you're talking about something, since our project is an author study, if you are talking about a author having a traumatic event in their life that drastically impacted the way they write and the way they think, you should probably have a lot to say about that. Because it's a significant, if it's that significant of an event, that's your claim, right? Is that it had a serious impact, or that's what your source is claiming. There should be plenty to talk about. Especially if it's affected somebody's life so much in one way that it ended up leading to altering the way that they write and the way they do their job. So I want you to make sure that you think about that. And then of course, you gotta tie off your quote here. Close enough. And then this is where you kind of basically, this is your final thoughts on this point. So if you are doing this correctly, given the length of our paragraphs and the length of the assignment, this could theoretically be a whole body paragraph. You could basically use about 3 quotes, paraphrases, or references to fill out almost the entire essay. Given that this is one of the earlier research assignments for us, I'm not expecting you to be flawless. Do remember to try to cite your sources, and by try, I mean do so. However, if your formatting isn't flawless, I'm not there to double check that right at the moment. You can always feel free to email me. I'll throw my email back up on the board at the end of this video. But if your citations aren't perfect the first time, that's okay. We're practicing and we're learning. I will tell you, do not use a block quote. You are writing a 5-paragraph paper, and you are looking at a block quote is any quote of 4 lines or more. Given that most of us tend to write about 7-sentence paragraphs, you just don't need it. You're really only looking at about 21 sentences of body, and for about 20% of that to get eaten up by a block quote just isn't a good look, guys. So, with all of that, that would just be kind of the way I would introduce everything. Now, remember, the easiest way to write any essay, in your intro, you tell them what you're gonna tell them, right? In your body, you tell them. And in your conclusion, you tell them what you told them. So just remember that you, I'm gonna put this in brackets. Tell them, let's erase our ratio for now. And the board's struggling again. Tell them what you will tell them. I'm just going to shorten that out here. Tell them what you will tell them. tell them. And finally, apostrophe has to be there to make this grammatically correct. You're still learning something. Tell them what you told them. Again, remember that apostrophe needs to be there to make that into a grammatically correct form. Remember that apostrophe basically just means in writing that you have omitted letters or a letter. So that's what that's there for. So if you've ever seen somebody write like you'll see that. Remember, we're saying the E's gone, so enough. When somebody says enough said. All right, so that's beside the point. Just a little tangent there. So format your quotes. Make sure that you have a clear structure. I should know in your conclusion when you are ending your essay. I shouldn't sit there and say, oh, there might be more essay coming. Have some of that nice final punch. Remember, your conclusion's your knockout punch. This is where you're like, got it, mic drop moment, I'm out. So your conclusion needs to be firm and definite. And finally, what I would also recommend doing is I would outline. We've outlined multiple times before, so I'm not going to show you how to do that again here today. But I would recommend outlining because it really does help, especially given that we're not as practiced at writing research assignments. So realistically speaking, research just isn't the thing that we're best at. Many of us can write a great opinion. Many of us can write a great short story. But up until you start getting into middle school and high school, you tell stories all your life. And then all of a sudden people are like, hey, research stuff. So I'm going to pop my email back up on the board here real quick. Always feel free to email me. Remember that does go to my phone because all of my emails get forwarded there. So I want to make sure that you know that is always available. And remember, my email is estoll, first letter of my first name, last name, at eastbridgeedu.org. Remember that double E. Most of the time when people are emailing something to me, they only put one E. So just double check that you have the double E. This has been a little bit of a short rundown on some tips and tricks for your research assignment. Remember, you are researching an author, so try to select your author before you really kind of start writing. I know that sounds common sense, but every now and then people start trying to figure out what they want to say in their paper before they totally pick their topic. Once you've picked your author, try to pick about 2 or 3 things that you really want to talk about. Remember those 3 body paragraphs. And I would have them be things that there is a lot of information about. Generally speaking, when you're writing a research paper, you want to pick the topics or subtopics in this case, because your topic is an author. You want to pick the subtopics to talk about that have the most information. Why? Because if you start to fizzle out and you can't get into here and you're stuck about here, you gotta have more stuff to say. So maybe you switch out of this and you go for something else. I would tell you that outlining will help that issue from even happening, but if it does happen, you have a lot to choose from. So why settle for just 1 cheeseburger when you can have 20 cheeseburgers to choose from? And for those of you who do not eat meat, tofu burgers, black meat burgers are also quite good. I tried them recently. So if you have any questions, again, email me. I am more than happy to help and answer any and all questions. Next video is going to be a little bit about our short story assignment. So if you did not pick this one and you have watched this video all the way to the end, congratulations. Thank you for sticking with me, and that'll be the next video.